What is regression testing? In short, regression testing is checking the existing functionalities when there is a change or deployment into our existing product. So you have a product, you have 20 functionalities, and you have automation or you are having test cases to be executed. So you have some system beforehand, and there is a new feature added to the functionality, or an existing functionality is changed. So in this case, you make sure none of the existing functionalities are broken, unexpectedly broken because of this change. When we are changing a functionality, for example, previously A was converted to C, and then now you are changing the functionality, A should be converted to B. Obviously, your existing test case for A and validating C will fail because the new result is B. But if it is unintended, if you are doing A to C on in one endpoint, but this change is applied to all other endpoints, that might break our system. So if the rating system is added with a specific information, but the same information is stored into somewhere else, these kind of problems will create our existing system to break. If you think about modern software systems, this is where 80-90% of our focus of automation will be, because it's snowball effect. Once you started with 5 features and then you keep adding one feature every 3 months, one new endpoint in every month, one new payload field in every week, that will becomes like over a period of 1 year or 2 year, you get like up with like from one microservice 20 endpoints into 5 microservice and 200 endpoints. So whatever you test at previous time for half a day, now you might need 4 days to 5 days to all these existing functionalities are verified. That's why we are focusing more on how to automate as much as possible. And when you try to automate, mostly we will be focusing on automate all the regression cases. I don't want it to validate navigation paths, or I don't want to validate password validations, login page validations when there is a functionality change in rating added with small new functionality. But still I want to test it, but I don't have enough time to test it manually. That's why we are focusing more on automation testing with regards to regression. So in real scenario, this is what happens. You have 20 scenarios with different permutations is tested in an automated suite. You might be having 100 test cases which covers all these 20 functionalities or pages or endpoint, depends on your application, right? But whenever there is a new functionality comes in, you do one quick round of testing manually. What we explore, that is when you are seeing for the first time. So at that time, your automation suite might not have these definitions for what is the new pages, what is the new messages, what is the data is. Don't have enough information beforehand. When you get it into QA environment, or when you are getting it from the developer's environment, that is when you start doing how to test it. And at that time, you start automating at the when it is deployed. So if you're thinking about same sprint automation, this is what you do. The feature will be available in QA. You do minimum one round of new functionality testing to see what consumer promised is working. Then you start automating this functionality using your existing functionalities. So you might already have functions for validating the response. You might be having for validating the response codes and what is the response payload looks like. You might be having that validation. In a web page situation, you might already have functions to validate an error message comes into this login page. When they are adding new login page or new login method, for example, your system is already having Google login. Now the new feature is adding Facebook login. You wanted to try an invalid scenario, but half of them or more than half of them, 60-70% of these functionalities are already automated. So all you have to do, just identify this Facebook login button, navigate to this error page, make sure you get the right error message for Facebook login. Maybe Google login might have a different error. So okay, Google account is wrong. Facebook login might have a different error message. So you make small changes. Now the automation is available. You execute it once or twice on your local and you send it for review. One of the QA members or other developers will review this and then we merge it. This is how we continuously increase the coverage of regression testing in terms of automation. Why it is very important is because you wanted to do the regression testing, but you don't have enough time to do all the regression testing. Then there is a small deviation from that. Do we really need to execute all of them? If a rating system, if for example, if the Facebook login is added, then it makes sense to check the login page with all login page tests. But if some new payload is added to the rating system, or somewhere in the checkout page they added a new button, the login suite, not necessarily you need to execute all of these scenarios. It depends on what we discussed in the previous call that about gray box testing. If you understand what is changed and where it changed, you can also identify what need to be tested. So you don't need to run all your 100 automation scripts or 100 test ideas you written, but you will be selecting 20 to 30 of them, at least. Maybe, yeah, you wanted to make sure login works as well, so you don't have to do all these permutations of login, but you pick one test case from login, one from payment, one from checkout. In addition, you focus more on which page is mostly changed, which page is impacted. So this comes to another discussion of what is risk-based testing. We can discuss it in another call. So pretty much regression testing, when there is a change, you make sure unintended changes, unintended or untouched areas are working fine as before. In other words, this is also, you can think it is a backward compatibility mode. If you are adding a new feature, new endpoint, none of the existing endpoints are broken. That is what we are testing in regression testing.